The mighty SEC now has 16 teams after poaching two of the biggest brands in college football in Texas and Oklahoma. And with the expansion of the college football playoffs, you can expect that at least a fourth of the conference is going to be represented every single year. And hell, even some years, you might see 5 teams. I've already ranked the Big 10 and the Big 12 by how many conference games that they're going to win over the next 5 years. So we're going to do the same thing with your favorite conference. It just means more with the Southeastern Conference. And we'll judge by the comment section to see if it really does mean more. Number 16, the Vanderbilt Commodores. Now, they are the Washington Generals of the SEC. Now, they've averaged just 1 conference win per year over the last 7 seasons. That ain't good. And outside of a 3-year run with James Franklin at the helm, this team has been non-competitive. It is interesting, though, that Clark Lee put together a top 40 recruiting and transfer class. Now, it's still ranked dead last in the SEC, so even though it was good by SEC standards, not so much. And I think it's fair to assume that they're going to stay as this conference footstool. On to number 15, Mississippi State. I love Mississippi State. I had a great game against them boys. But anyways, I thought the Bulldogs were on the right track. And what happened with Mike Leach is absolutely terrible. Because Zach Arnett probably should have found a way to run the air raid with that roster that was built for the air raid. And because he didn't, Mississippi State remains under rebuild mode under Jeff Levy. And I think this offense could get cooking, but one winning season in the SEC in this millennium makes me think that even if he does, the ceiling for the Bulldogs is a 4-4 record in the conference. Number 14, Sam Pittman and the Arkansas faithful are being desperate enough to welcome Bobby Petrino back to Fayetteville to run the offense. That's the most WWE storyline in all of college football. That would literally be like hiring Arkansas native Bill Clinton to run Joe Biden's White House intern program. You ain't gonna do that. But with only one winning season in the last 12 years since Petrino left, I get it. The 2024 recruiting class is surprisingly good, and maybe Petrino can get this offense back on track and save Sam Pittman's job. But I don't see them leapfrogging any of the other schools on this list in the process. Number 13, South Carolina. I like Shane Beamer. And the Gamecocks have first-round talent, and the fan energy at William Bright Stadium is crazy. So why do I have South Carolina so low on this list? Well, they're 14 games under 500 in the SEC since Steve Spurrier resigned 10 years ago. And they've only put together a top 50 scoring offense once in the last decade while finishing lower than 90th in over half of those seasons. Now, I don't normally recommend teams shift to the air raid unless they're at a significant talent deficiency, but South Carolina, they need to do something because what they're doing is not working, and that's the definition of insanity because the whole conference is leveling up right now. They're setting scoring records, and to compete with the Blue Bloods, you can't be still in games 27-17 anymore. Number 12, Florida. Billy Napier is a good coach. In fact, he actually might be a great one. But college football is not just about coaching and recruiting anymore. It's about fundraising, wrangling boosters, hiring the right staff, and babysitting your talent in a way that keeps them from bolting to a better option. Now, the entire college football-loving country is convinced that Napier is on his last chance, and Florida's schedule next year is an absolute gauntlet. And if the unfortunate happens and they do fire Napier, as most people expect could happen, they're not going to hire somebody who comes in and has instant success. That's actually why I have Florida 12th on this list, because even if by 2028 the Gators are back in the college football playoff hunt, it would have been 3 or 4 years of a grind to build back up to where they belong. But hey, if Arkansas can bring Bobby Petrino back, maybe Florida can run it back with Urban Meyer and get back to the mountaintop even quicker. Number 11, Kentucky. Mark Stoops flirted with leaving last season, and if I'm a Kentucky fan, I'm glad he didn't, because Stoops has raised the floor for the Wildcats to be consistently relevant and a destination for high-level quarterback transfers. But the fact remains that national relevance doesn't mean SEC success, because Kentucky has been ranked in the AP poll in 5 of the last 6 seasons, but they're 4 games under 500 in conference play over that time. Now, Kentucky's best shot at the college football playoff appearance is this year in 2024. And if they can make that happen, then maybe we'll find ourselves in a new era of Kentucky as one of the country's premier 2-sport schools. But if they can't level up with this stacked transfer class, I'm afraid it's never gonna happen. Number 10, Missouri. Following an 11-win season with what might be a top 5 defensive recruiting and portal class in the entire country, and you have Brady Cook returning, if I'm a Tigers fan, I'm thinking that we have a shot at the Natty this year. Hell, if Gary Pinkel knew how to defend the run, Missouri might have had multiple SEC titles and a national championship 10 years ago. This is a sleeping giant of a school, and maybe it's waking up, but I hesitate to throw my full endorsement behind Eli Drinkowitz until I see him stack 2 successful years back to back. Number 9, Texas A&M. They say that money can't buy happiness, but that's not going to stop the Aggie boosters from trying. They funded the sport's first $100 million coach. They funded the greatest recruiting class in the rankings era. And then they funded that coach's buyout for not being able to turn that recruiting class into anything meaningful. And now Mike Elko is back in the fold. And that's a hell of a football coach. He knows the landscape, he knows the culture, and he's got the roster that's more than capable of making a run at the Aggies' first 7+ win run in the SEC in a non-COVID shortened season since '98. My one concern about this school is the thing that has seemingly kept them from being a powerhouse all these years. Can anybody inside and outside the program row the boat in the same direction? Because they be... Number 8, Auburn. Say what you want about Hugh Freeze, but the man can win football games. Auburn has 3 undefeated seasons in the last 30 years. And now we're starting a new chapter of SEC football that does not include Nick Saban. You know the Tiger faithful has convinced themselves that they're all the way back, especially with Saban going, we got a shot. An incoming freshman quarterback, Walker White, is coming into the program alongside 2 of the country's most electric prep wideouts in Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson. And that trio might end up reminding rival coach Kalen DeBoer of what he built out in Washington with them boys with Penix and Adunze and McMillan. And I'm willing to say that at least once over the next 5 years, we'll see Auburn in the college football playoff. Number 7, Tennessee. The Vols came for the NCAA, and now they're coming for the SEC. And Tennessee is honestly past due. It's going to come down to whether Nico Iamaleava is the real deal, but I could see this being a top 15 offense over the next 2 seasons. And can we talk about how crazy it is that Josh Heupel went into Alabama and pulled maybe the best high school edge rusher in Jordan Ross to Knoxville? So why 7th and not higher? Well, because the SEC is so stacked that even if Tennessee does put together consecutive winning seasons in the league, something that they haven't done since '07, I don't think that it'll be enough to overcome the teams ahead of them, but I will say that this team has top 4 potential. Number 6, this is going to scare some people, Alabama. The Crimson Tide went from the greatest coach of all time to what might be the best in-game head coach in America. And it doesn't matter. They're still going to fall off. The entire country is going to have its eyes on Tuscaloosa to see how the fan base handles taking a step back. And our expectation is that y'all are going to tear each other to pieces. Are you going to prove us wrong, though? Can Bama fans give Kalen DeBoer 3 years to figure out the offense, the recruiting, learn the landscape down there in the South? Hell, can you even give the man 2 years? We'll see. But luckily for the program, they could fall off a cliff and go 5-3 in the conference every single year, which still is a lot better than I expect from 10 other teams in the SEC and is going to put them in the college football playoff hunt. Number 5, Oklahoma. I know SEC fans aren't going to love that I have the Big 12 defectors this high on my list. But just because you think Oklahoma got fat off or flyover country cupcake teams, but that doesn't change the fact that Oklahoma football is a tried and true blue blood that out-recruited most SEC schools on a consistent basis over the past couple of decades. Brent Venables, to me, is a top 5 coach in the league before he's even set foot in it. And in 2023, the recruiting class that's already been in Norman for a year can go toe-to-toe with anybody in the country. If Jackson Arnold is as good as Sooner fans believe he'll be, Oklahoma might do something crazy and challenge for SEC supremacy in year 1. Number 4, LSU. The Tigers have all the money. They have Brian Kelly. They have the juice of turning Jaden Daniels from average to out of this world. They could take over the SEC and nobody would be surprised. Even though Joe Burrow once proved otherwise, defense is still the thing that wins championships. In 3 of the last 4 seasons, the Tigers' defense has been objectively awful. Hiring Blake Baker from Missouri might be the answer, but if it isn't, it's going to be hard for LSU to take a place atop the conference. And now we're to the top of the SEC. At number 3, we have Texas. The Steve Sarkisian just got a shiny new contract, and I think that the Texas boosters have hitched their wagon to the right man. But they better hope that an NFL team doesn't come knocking and see that buyout as more of a challenge than a deterrent. And the thing that I like about Texas is that the moment they knew that they were headed to the SEC, they made sure that they were invested in SEC-level trench players. Now this year, though, they have just 3 incoming offensive linemen in the 2024 recruiting class, but their current roster is stacked because Sark usually lands the top 5 quarterback year in and year out, and I think that they'll build off of last year's college football playoff appearance. Now, they might not win the SEC right out the gate, but I definitely think that they'll be at the finish line more often than not over the next 5 years. Number 2, Ole Miss. Now, I know you think I'm crazy for this one, but just like Penn State and the Big Ten, I believe that some teams have been on the verge of something special in recent years and were built for the future, and the future is right now. Because Lane Kiffin isn't afraid of the portal. In fact, he's gotten the number 1 portal class in the country headed into 2024. Kiffin is 16-6 in the SEC in the last 3 years against everybody not named Nick Saban. And now that Nick Saban has moved on, I feel like there's only one coach standing in Kiffin's way, and that's Kirby Smart. He's got a good defensive coordinator in Pete Golding, and Jackson Dart might be a Heisman contender in 2024, and I'm predicting the age of the Rebel is upon us. And I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't at least make 3 college football playoff appearances in the next 5 years with the expanded playoff. And now number 1. Everybody knew that they were going to be number 1, because if they weren't, this would be a joke of a list. Because if Kirby Smart didn't leave Athens for Alabama last season, I don't think anything is going to make this man give up the throne. And if you let Georgia into last year's college football playoff, we might be talking about a three-peat. And sometimes when a team has success, you see some complacency set in, and it almost always shows up in the form of a recruiting dip. Maybe that's because assistants get hired away or because the staff just relaxes a little bit. And that ain't the Bulldog way, because after winning their first natty in 40 years, the last 3 high school recruiting signing classes have been number 3, number 2, and number 1. On paper, they bring back the top offense and defense in the SEC into next season. And if they beat Clemson as bad as I think they will on August 31st, they might be in a runaway train mode come conference play.